not wrong. Now we're going to come now to the steps that we must follow to do ethical decision making. And the first one is you must determine what is the problem. What is the problem really? What has happened here now? The problem is if I don't get someone here, this man needs medical attention. He needs to be assessed before he's going to theatre. So the doctor did what was asked by the patient, or he ruled for himself. Right? Never mind now, just leave the cardiology there. She got someone. He wasn't satisfied, she got another person. So you first state the problem. The problem is there's someone here that do not want me to touch him. He wants a white doctor. So that is the problem. Someone that doesn't want me. So I get another person because he can rule for himself. There's something about the decision that makes me uncomfortable. Normally we feel like that, né? Especially our sisters. It doesn't feel right to me. Or do I have a conflict of interest? How come would this patient be like this? Does he question my capabilities as a doctor? Or what? Okay, so you state the problem, identify what is it that is making you uncomfortable. The fact is, I am hurt. I don't say no, I don't want to be examined, but I want a white doctor, right? So many problems disappear upon closer examination of a situation while others change radically. The moral of the story is I want the other doctor. I don't want that male, he's also black. I don't want the surgeon, she's the trauma doctor, she's also black. Get me a white doctor, okay? Thirdly, identify the relevant factors. In other words, go have now a closer look at what is the problem. Dissecting it piece by piece. What is here? What is it this that I'm dealing with? And normally we consider the persons involved, the laws, the professional code of practice and other practical constraints. There was a constraint. There was no white doctor available. So what did this black doctor do? She called someone from the department that she knows, who is a white skin, to come to this patient, right? Develop a list of options that could solve the problem. In other words, what can I do? Okay, I called the first one. He was a male, all right? Because she thought maybe it's about the fact that she's a female. Called the other doctor. No, he wasn't good enough. Then it actually came out, the real factor that is at stake here. I want a white doctor. She called the white doctor, right? So the options that she had, what is then the next one? Develop the list of options that could solve the problem. Be imaginative. Try to avoid another dilemma. She actually, by calling the cardiologist, created another dilemma. Can you see? Not yes or no, but whom to go to and what to say. What exactly must I do? This is just different, playing around with options. Now, if you have now identified certain options for your dilemma, and you know what, this is a very good thing in your personal life also to apply. It works for me. Then you first do if you now say, for example, she now identified and said that the problem that I want to solve here is this patient doesn't want me to touch him. He needs a white doctor. She got a cardiologist who's a female with a white skin. She's probably not white because she's a mixture of Jew and Korean. Now we do the harm test. We have an option now. Does this option do less harm than alternatives? Clearly she didn't test that. Because if she would have gone and sit down and say to herself, does this do more harm? She would have said, I can't call that doctor. Because what about the patients in cardiology? What if there's someone with a cardiac block? What if somebody comes in with a severe myocardial infarction? She's not going to be there to treat the patient. So she must now leave her patients, a point of duty, to come here to me because of this man. Is it to do no harm? She didn't consider it, right? Then the next thing is the publicity test. Would I want my choice of this option be published in a newspaper? And as professionals, we must always consider this. If you made a decision and you make a choice how to solve this problem, is it okay with you if the Sun is going to write about it? If it comes into the newspaper? If you have any doubts, you must trust your inner judgment and say, no, this is not right, right? Then the defensibility test. Could I, if push comes to now that I must go to court, Will I be able to defend this choice of option before a congressional committee or a committee of peers or even in court? Will you be able to? You know, there is a principle in law that they talk about dolus eventualis. I don't know if you have heard that. If you watch the Oscar Pistorius trial, and ultimately I think this is going to happen now with the Kleine Zaltse murder as well, maybe. But the dolus eventualis, it's a big word, it's a Latin word. Principle says that a reasonable man, what is a reasonable man? In nursing, we also learn about a reasonable man is that you will be able, as a professional, you must be able to judge what your actions will cause to another person. People, that is a very big thing. Dolus eventualis, if I can refer to the Oscar Pistorius trial, remember they said that he shot through a door, a closed door, but there was somebody in there. And he didn't do this up in the air. It was directed at the door. 3, 2, 3, 4 shots, if I can remember. Whatever, never mind. But it wasn't up in the air to scare someone. It was directed. So what did Gerrie Nel say? Your action, the thought that you applied to what you were going to do. You are a reasonable man, and you must have seen that your action, what you did, would have caused harm to the person at the back of the door. River died. Can you see dolus eventualis? Can you defend your defensibility test? Could I defend this choice that I did? Will I be able to defend it in a court of law or in front of my peers? If a patient came in myocardial shock in the cardiology department, how would this doctor defend that in front of her peers? That she called that doctor away because of this other one. Could there have been another way to deal with this than calling a specialist, a cardiology specialist with specialized knowledge? Somebody else can't just walk in there and go treat a myocardial infarction patient. Will she be able to defend it in front of peers in law, in front of a court of law? Then the reversibility test. You know, it's always a good thing when we start off in nursing, then the tutors always tell you, you must look after a patient in this way or that way. Just think for one moment if it was your mother or your child. Can you remember that? Yes. We used to grow up with, in nursing, with that thing of, just think for a moment if it's your husband or your child or your woman, your wife in labor. And this is the reversibility test. If it was me, how would I feel? What would it done to me? Right? The reversibility test. And then the collegial test. What might my profession's governing board or ethics committee say about this option? What about SANC? What will SANC say about my action or my choice that I did here? What does the organization's ethics committee say about this? You know, people on this previous 2 tests that you must do if you test your options in ethical decision making. Do you know, a few years ago, I don't know who of you maybe sat in the disciplinary hearing of the council, the nursing council. It was there in a hotel close to Groote Schuur Hospital, where the 3 Groote Schuur staff members were called to the disciplinary hearing. It's like a court of law. It was a registered nurse from the trauma department and an enrolled nurse, and then an assistant nurse that worked in emergency, but at the gynae emergency room or at the delivery. It's like the obstetrics emergency section in the trauma unit. And then what happened is that this patient from Heideveld presented at Heideveld, the community health center. She was in labor, but I think she had a stillborn baby. So they transferred her to Groote Schuur Hospital, and she just arrived as the day shift went off and the night shift came on, and the assistant nurse found herself alone in that section. The agency sister did not arrive on time, 7 o'clock for duty. What happened was patient called, assistant auxiliary nurse went to see to the patient, and she saw that the membranes bulged. That this woman is going to give birth any moment. What was the next thing? She left the patient. She's alone there. She left the patient, ran to the emergency, the trauma section, went to go call a staff nurse. Staff nurse came and, oh, no, it's not. Go get the sister. Just remember, the assistant nurse left the patient's bedside, went to go call the staff nurse again, and they came back and went to go call the sister. So they called the sister, and the sister came, delivered the baby, delivered the placenta, left, and had to run back because she's in emergency, patients are waiting there. What happened? So the assistant nurse had to clean up, blah, blah, blah. But there wasn't a sister in the obstetrics emergency little section. At that time, the patient was traumatized because she was alone, She laid charges at council. The director of nursing, Mrs. Ross, I can remember Mrs. Ross was still in charge of the hospital, had to appear at the council hearing to explain why was there no registered nurse on duty. She wasn't there at that moment. Why? How did you plan? The assistant nurse charges was laid against her to say, you left a patient in your care alone, number one. You failed to create a therapeutic environment for that patient by leaving her alone, scared and anxious. You failed to report and record. You had to phone when there was an assistant, there was a patient, you had to phone to tell the people. But shame, she also just tried the best. The enrolled nurse was also charged with failed to create a therapeutic environment, failed to report, failed, she left the patient alone. The registered nurse, she's staying there close by me. We all cried that day. She also was charged with all of those. And it felt so unfair to all of us. You see, in an emergency situation, you get trapped in an ethical dilemma. Now, who can still go through all of this in order to arrive at a... But you have to, people. You have to think. Where am I now? Is somebody there to cover me quickly? Let me run and go do, but you cannot, and especially if it comes to a delivery of a baby. Because it's another kind of category. I'm going to give you a moment now. Other category of patient, because there's a mother and a baby involved. This woman was so special because it was even a stillborn. It's a psychological trauma that this patient found herself in, and counsel, and it was horrific to hear that hearing that day. Sister, you want to say?
My question is, doesn't physical well-being supersede emotional?
You answer that question.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
The units, you
yes.
so dear Maka, and so that the physical, you want to save physical health.
Yes.
Then emotional therapeutic environment follow as.
Are you a midwife? Are you a midwife? What does your regulation say?
No, because the physical things comes first.
Yes.
Physical safety.
But you should not leave a patient who delivered alone. Never. But it's a dilemma because your patient with a step heart is in trauma where you are assigned to.
Argue is about therapeutic environments. I mean,
yes.
the argument that I listened to.
Yeah. Now, you left the patient alone. It's your regulation pertaining to the midwife. You failed to stay with the patient. You failed to create.
All the argument that was given now was about therapeutic, emotional comfort. So if you physically see to the patient's well-being, then you've done your duty. First.
I disagree. I disagree. Therapeutic environment means a safe, hygienic, skillful, identified, infection-controlled, blah, 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 environment. It's so much more. Therapeutic environment is not only drawn curtains, quietness, a comfortable bed. It's not that. You see, the moment there's other regulations, your midwifery regulation comes in there. She was not supposed to leave the patient alone. Full stop. Even though the placenta was delivered, you're not supposed to leave the patient alone. But on the other hand, can you see the ethical dilemma? Her patient, probably with a stab heart or asthma attack, a child is lying in the emergency where she was assigned to work. So it's the best of two evils. Where do you go to? Somebody called you for help. If you accept responsibility at the point, it's going to cause, in such a situation, an ethical dilemma. That is why I say, now who goes through all of this? Reversibility test, what would you do if it was one of your people? Your collegial test, what would Sang say about it? That's why I now refer to this disciplinary hearing. Now you make a decision, okay? I take the one decision, the best of two evils. All right. Now you make the choice, you apply it. And then, as it is being implemented, you review the steps again, 1 to 6. Those 1 to 6 that we did now, consider the following questions. How could I have avoided having to make such a decision again in future? Should we have a SOP, for example? Should we have a policy on how to handle a situation like this to prevent me of being involved in the ethical decision the issues, so that I do not have to make such a uncomfortable decision again? Are there any precautions that I can take as an individual to prevent this kind of dilemma in the future? Is there any way to have more support next time? He said just now that I found the palliative team, I found the doctor. You immediately make use of your support network around you to help you make a decision. Is there any way to change the organization, for example, suggest policy changes at the next department meeting, for example? What are we going to do? Which room are we going to use in the future if there's a dying patient that takes some time, that needs some quiet time with the family? Is there an alternative to what we're doing? Shall we keep a specific room maybe at hand or available? What is the internal movements? So that is where your policies and your standard operational procedures and standards and things come in, where the registered nurse must actually advocate for this, right?